I'd like to thank the panel for bringing their experience and working directly with the early career researcher community and sharing not only issues that are happening regionally in China and Russia, some interesting things that Chris pointed out, to different specialties in nursing that Jane pointed out. So clearly, there's much work to do in terms of raising the awareness of the issues through various communication channels. So with that, I know it's very close to the time that Jane has to leave. I did want to open it up for any questions. I did have one of the questions that I did have for the panel, and I think that they shared a number of things that we can do as a publishing community. But maybe you could offer what is the sort of one thing that you think that publishers should really focus on in terms of where you see the need for greater education on the issues, greater education on the issues?
I think, personally, I think we need much more clear manuscript guidelines with our journals. And I think having learning modules for reviewers would also be extremely helpful. I think reaching out to doctoral students and early career researchers and inviting them to be, much as you said, inviting them to be reviewers and then having, so that that's a learning process in itself. And then they're able to complete those learning modules and learn what a good review looks like. That's really going to help them in terms of knowing how to develop good, solid manuscripts as well as what the ethics of publication are.
Thank you.
I can second the idea about instructions for authors. Many authors, Western or Asian or Latin American, will say that they read the instructions for authors when it really means that they know where they are and they've seen them. A good colleague of mine, her name just jumped out of my head, but she often has professed that instructions for authors should not just be written, they should actually be peer tested. There should be focus group testing to show that these are ergonomically well designed for understanding.
I would third that comment, but also to let early career researchers know, and unfortunately more and more that I've found fall into this, is that if they submit an article to one journal that's rejected and don't mention that fact, which they don't have to do, but that we do communicate with each other. And I have, unfortunately, not received a lot, but several articles which were in fact plagiarized and rejected by other journals. And then I was contacted once I went out to look for referees, naive for me, that this had been a plagiarized article. And then I have to tell the author that they've committed plagiarism, and that I will tell everyone I know that they have plagiarized. So that's, intentional plagiarism. Unintentional plagiarism is a different matter. But to let any contributor, but early career researchers know that there is some standard, and education is woeful, in fact, but that some of us are at least trying to man the ramparts a little bit and not allow just anything to get through, and that we do communicate.
Can I just add another thing, which I had also mentioned in one of my earlier comments in another session, that again, the predatory author services is becoming very near and dear to me, and to editors as an organization. At the ISMTE meeting in August, Hazel Newton and myself will be presenting on predatory author services with Jeffrey Beal and potentially Dr. Yan from China. The call to action is going to be that we need to figure out as a community a way to identify ethical vendors, whether it be through a verifiable badge or something of this nature. So my answer to the question is there's going to need to be a community-wide publisher and vendor and maybe even pharma initiative to allow vendors, ethical author service vendors, to be able to have some way to identify them that they have been vetted of being ethical, and by exclusion, hopefully that will lead to an education. But so my call to action is please come to the ICMT meeting, hear what we have to say and the proposals on the table, but I really am prompting the publishing community to forge with us to figure out a way to create an environment where an author can identify an ethical vendor to support them in their publication practices.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Were there any questions? Yes.
I'm Glenn Collins from Origin Editorial. I would almost turn it around, and this is about early career researchers, but any early career researcher who is writing a paper, there is a senior author, as you noted, sometimes automatically stuck on the end. Where is their part in this process? I've worked with many of those people. They are editor-in-chiefs. You have somebody who you're working with. You yourself have published 40, 50, 60 papers. You've gone through this so many times. You know it backwards and forwards, and you know that list. Are they being educated? Where are the deans? Where are the institutions in all of this? Do we really need to educate the young people, or do we need to educate the people who are supposed to be telling them this stuff?
So I would, last year in August, we had an international meeting of all the nursing editors. And Jeffrey Beal spoke at that. And I went back to my university, the University of Pennsylvania. It's the top-ranked school of nursing in the country. And we presented to all of the faculty about, there are a few of us who are editors, predatory publishers and the whole thing. I would say 95% of our faculty were unaware of this movement. People had gotten these emails that we all get a half a dozen of a day, and they'd either go into your spam email or you just delete. And people, generally, everyone's in their own little world, doing their research, doing their teaching, and people just have not been aware of how this movement has gone. And so I'll just very quickly say, last week I got an email inviting me to present a paper that I would find out in 24 hours, and the meeting was going to be in 2 weeks, and one of those things.
In Las Vegas?
No, this was actually going to be in Vienna. But at any rate, at the bottom of the list listed a gentleman who was a faculty in another discipline, but another university. And so I looked him up. And we've done this a couple of times in our journal. But anyway, I looked him up, and I sent him an email, and I sent his department chair an email to say, do you realize that you are listed as the program director of this program that is a scam? And a couple days later, he wrote back to me and thanked me for alerting him to this and saying he had nothing to do with this. He had totally unaware that this had gone on. And so I really think among faculties in many disciplines, people are not aware of this whole movement that's taking place. They don't understand it.
It's being understood as an email scam, and
Right.
they're putting up email filters, and they're not even understanding the complexity of the challenge and what it's going to mean for integrity of literature.
Mm-hmm. But the point is clearly valid, and I think even in discussing with this panel when we were having our preparations, what defines early career researcher? Our committee has discussed that, and I think the issues that are surfacing and have been surfacing in recent years extends well beyond early career researchers. So it's certainly a valid point.
But your point is absolutely valid in that there's a failure at the senior leadership of academia for not educating and training properly. But then, that's an age-old problem that I experienced, that my mentors were not necessarily
Mentoring.
mentors.
Thank you.
Great question. Any others? No? Just in closing, I want to give first of all, I'd like to truly thank our panelists to provide their thoughts and perspectives, working with the authors and researchers in their respective fields, and to bringing to light and giving some real-world examples of the issues that are going on within the community, the broader community. So thank you for your time. And in closing, I'd like to shamelessly pitch our communications committee and to say to the publishers, if you have someone within your organization that you'd like to have participate, to join in our discussions, not only on this priority topic around thought leadership for the early career researcher or certainly the author community, we have a number of other initiatives as well. So we do welcome the support and input from the broader publishing community to participate. So thank you and enjoy the cocktail hour.
And thank you to you too, Connie, for moderating this.